at the movies with Tim Sika. Here he is. Hi, Bill.
Hey, hi Kim.
Hi.
So I guess I'm on first this week, huh? That's cool.
I know that's how late the Mark
Ooh,
Thompson show was. You know what? As politics heats up, as there's more
I know.
interest in politics and we have more
Yeah.
political guests, the shows are probably going to be a little bit later and later as we get toward the election because there's so much to talk about.
Oh, I know, and so much is happening, and it's just one story seems to be topping the previous
Mhm.
story, you know? Yeah.
But part of the reason that people just adore you is because sometimes they're tapped out of politics and they want their brains to go somewhere else for a hot second. And that means let's take a look at the movies, right?
Yeah, that's what's good about movies. They can be a necessary distraction
Yeah,
when life gets to be too crazy. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We got
Um,
some good ones this week.
this one is Conclave. What?
Conclave, yeah. Well, the Vatican is where the drama of Conclave takes place. The Vatican, I think people forget that the Vatican is sort of like a city unto itself. It's a self-regulated place that answers to nobody except those Catholic priests and nuns and clergy who live there. And so inside the Vatican can make for some good drama, or in the case of Conclave, some really good melodrama. This movie is directed by Edward Berger, who made a really big splash a couple of years ago with his acclaimed multi-award winning remake of All Quiet on the Western Front. If anybody tuning in hasn't seen that remarkable anti-war film, I highly recommend that they do. He's a good director, and it's interesting. I wouldn't have thought necessarily that he'd be well suited to this material because Western Front was mostly outside, but even though unlike Western Front, Conclave takes place in a confined space inside the walls of the Vatican, where a pope has suddenly died, right? And so this cardinal, played by Ralph Fiennes, is tasked with the job of organizing a papal conclave to elect the next pope. And when the vote keeps getting split between several candidates, this cardinal, he starts to investigate the pasts of these candidates, these cardinals, and he uncovers secrets and scandals about each one that kind of, are ripping him apart inside
Oh, wow.
because he's in charge of this. And yeah, this is an excellent film. It's an excellent screenplay based on a novel by Robert Harris, 2016 novel, and it's receiving a lot of buzz, which made me a little wary of having too high expectations about it. And I wasn't sure as I was watching it that it was all about like a whole lot. I'm going, well, if this were a story about internecine warfare within the confines of anywhere else but the Catholic Church and the Vatican, would I even care? But then came the summation, which, and I'm not giving anything away here. I'm going to be talking in metaphors, sort of, I guess, I think. But the summation of the movie consisted of two twists. One that was predictable, and then the final one, which was, oh, this is where we're going. This is where the story is leading us. Uh, and it's an ending appropriate for our time. It's dramatically inspired. It was deeply moving. And it's a message that the Catholic Church, if it's going to survive, survive in the 21st century, it's a message that the church not only needs to hear, but to implement if it wants to continue to exist. In short, the ending of this movie was perfection. And it was very skillfully done because we, the audience, upon retrospect, we realize that we are being set up for this powerful ending by the film's previous plot twist. And I don't know if that makes any sense because I'm not giving any
Okay.
plot things away. But so yeah, it's an excellent drama. In a lot of ways, it's reminiscent of those old-fashioned Hollywood dramatic mystery thrillers. I
Mhm.
think it's going to get a lot of Oscar nominations. Ralph Fiennes and Stanley Tucci as two of the film's cardinals are just superb. The entire cast is great. Isabel Rossellini plays one of the nuns, and she's terrific too. And she's a dead ringer for her mom,
Yeah.
Ingrid Bergman, both physically and vocally. When she talks, if you close your eyes, you think boy, that's Ingrid Bergman on screen. Anyway, so I recommend it. It's playing in theaters now. And yeah, I happen to also love movies with great dialogue, and
Mhm.
this movie's got some great speechifying. But it's obviously speechifying, but it's delivered very naturally, so it doesn't seem like speechifying. But like A Man for All Seasons that we
Yeah.
talked about last week, I like movies that are really driven by really good dialogue, and this one's got great dialogue. So
It
yeah.
sounds like a really good drama, also a bit of a political thriller with a message, and I'm intrigued.
Yeah, there you go. That's a
Mhm.
good summation too.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
very good. And and
Alright.
and also, I think if you for those watching and listening now who were raised Catholic,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, it'll have some special resonance.
The next one is supposed to just be a box office smash. This one is called Venom: The Last Dance.
Yeah, Kim, I think I told you in my email that this movie, Venom: The Last Dance, was like the second of the Venom franchise, but it's actually the third
Mhm.
of three. The first one, Venom, came out in 2018. The second came out in 2021 called Venom: Let There Be Carnage. I don't think I saw one of those. And now this one, Venom: The Last Dance, which is for me reflective of one of the many challenges I have when I talk about these Marvel and DC comic book superhero
Mhm.
movies. And that challenge is trying to keep track of them
Yeah.
because they're very dense as stories and they're not the easiest films to digest on one viewing. And on top of that, they come out so fast, one right after the other. Okay, so anyway, so I just wanted to clear that up. And
Mm.
with these Marvel movies, at some point, at least this is for me, and the earlier the better, you just have to cry uncle and you have to go with them, which is pretty much what I did with this one, Venom: The Last Dance.
Yeah.
And for those just dying to know what the character of Venom is, he or it, I don't know if it has like a specific like gender pronoun, but it's a sentient alien symbiote with this amorphous liquid-like form that survives by bonding with a host,
Okay.
usually human, right? And in the case of these Venom movies, actor Tom Hardy, who plays an investigative journalist, his name is Eddie Brock, he becomes the host of or for Venom that imbues him with these superhuman abilities. So, then we have this dual life form with enhanced powers, okay? And it's the funny stuff in this movie is when Venom is trying to speak. Venom speaks through the mind of this guy. So you get these like conflicting dialogues going back and forth that are kind of very, very funny. But anyway, this time in the last chapter of Venom,
Mhm.
new symbiote hunter aliens from Venom's home planet have come to Earth and they're searching for Venom because he holds the key, I guess, to freeing their boss, who's this super villain named Krull, played by Andy Serkis. And it just hurts my head to present all that plot. And fans, forgive me if I got some of that wrong. So anyway, did I personally care about this movie? Not really. Do I think I can appreciate it as a movie? I think so. The script though is not all that great, but what is recommendable about this film as a whole are its cartoony elements mixed with a fair dose of seriousness. Chiwetel Ejiofor is in this. He plays, I don't know what, some military official who's trying to capture Venom, and he starred in 12 Years a Slave. He always plays like these serious roles, and he's in this. He plays everything about his character like it was written by Eugene O'Neill. So yeah,
Mhm.
so it works as a comic book kind of dramedy. It's recommendable for that. It's recommendable for its across the board performances, and it's recommendable for uh, uh, Tom Hardy. He
Mhm.
delivers yet again, and mostly there's some truly spectacular action sequences here. The final third of the movie, in fact, is just this one long extended special effects action set piece that's pretty breathtaking. So that's Venom: The Last Dance. Fans could care less what we critics think about these movies anyway. They're just gonna go. I'm so numbed by them at this point. It's
Mhm.
sort of like, what is it? And I think the other thing too, and I should know this, but it's like the Venom thing. It's like it's I read somewhere where it's like something like the fifth film in Sony's Spider-Man universe. So I'm trying to I can't even remember. I didn't even remember that. I had to do some research before I started talking about this movie, because I'm going, wait, this is from the this is in the Spider-Man franchise.
Mhm.
Really, it's like this. I don't know. It's like Tolkien. It's like this whole universe that's just really hard to keep track of unless you're a really big avid fan.
Sure.
Yeah.
This next one, in the age of Handmaid Tale and a
Oh
wife
yeah.
being taken away, you call this a feminist revenge movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a reasonably successful. It's being sold as a neo noir, this movie, but I saw it as this mystery sort of drama about a marriage on the rocks, a jerk of a husband, and this emotionally troubled woman who we learn is seeking revenge for what this jerk of a husband, philanderer and gaslighter is doing to her.
Mm.
So anyway, what we're told as the story unfolds is that this man, the husband, he's played by Shazad Latif. He's a writer who's currently blocked. He's living with his wife in this beautiful country home with her two kids. We're told that the wife, in a really good performance by Daisy Ridley, whose picture's in the poster there, we're told that she's emotionally troubled. She apparently worked at one time and was successful, but stopped to raise a family. And the plot involves the young daughter of this couple who lands a job on a period movie. She's co-starring with this popular Italian actress, and the father decides to chaperone the daughter on set while his wife, Daisy Ridley, remains home with their newborn baby. But during the film, meanwhile, the man finds himself, the husband, falling in love with this actress. And so the story becomes this cat and mouse thing where the wife suspects something's going on, and we're not really sure, but this just fuels her own mental anxiety. I like this film. Female revenge thrillers are becoming the rage in movies. I mean, in some respects, and for me anyway, they're always emotionally satisfying, especially when the male depicted in these stories is such a self-serving, gaslighting a-hole. And when they get theirs, you're kind of like, yeah, baby. But the film seemed to me to be missing pieces in terms of character, and what ultimately made the final cut of this movie was a version of the story that just focuses on the emotional entertainment value of the piece. In other words, the movie to me played like something, and that something was maybe more backstory on these characters was missing. And I'm just speculating here. I think if we would have gotten a little more information about these characters, these people, what they came out of, what drew them together. Did the wife's mental illness, was it always there, or was it caused by the husband's infidelities? We don't know enough about these characters to have fully informed opinions about them. Right. And that's what kept this good movie from being an excellent one. It's a taut, crisply paced film. It's 90 minutes, and I love 90-minute movies as a rule. But in this case, I wish this one were longer. But what is there is very entertaining. It's very satisfying, although sometimes I question these revenge best served cold thrillers. I mean, I'm going, God, this is like triggering me to want to go after every misogynist jerk that's out there. But the
violence is not the answer, Tim.
No, I know, but it's a very emotionally satisfying one.
Yeah.
but yeah, the acting is really good. Daisy Ridley, whose husband wrote the script, she played Rey in 3 of the Star Wars movies. She's excellent here, and I like the movie. I like the movie enough for a recommendation because in the end, it is this primal, satisfying revenge thriller. I just wish it were more fleshed out as a piece and that we knew more of the backstory of this couple. But it's still good, and parts of it will definitely keep you on the edge of your seats, wondering, gee, what is going to happen next?
Sometimes these movies, the reason I think the reason they work is when you start to care about the character. And so you don't know why she is how she is. It's maybe harder to have even a little relationship with her, right?
Yeah. But you're right, and it's funny the way the film was directed. She is the one that you care about, and you have rooting interest for her. Like, gee, is she going to be okay? What's going to happen? What's she going to do next? And Daisy Ridley's is fabulous. She's a British actress who, I mean, you'd never know, watching her movies, most of her movies, because she has an impeccable American accent
Yeah.
in this movie. But the acting's really strong. And, just listening to myself ramble on here, it may be a better movie than I actually, thought it was. I'm sort of criticizing it for what it lacked for me, but it was obviously done in this deliberate way to make a deliberate point. So, yeah, it's a good movie. Good movie. Yeah.
Mama writes, wasn't she in the PBS version of Mansfield Park?
I think so. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The next one is interesting. Memoir of a Snail.
This was such a surprise for me. It's a stop motion adult animated, largely tragic fable of sorts.
Okay.
Though it does kind of conclude on a sweet note, thank God. But very unusual movie. The movie's plot, which apparently was inspired by some of what the director went through himself in real life. The director's name is Adam Elliott. It follows the trials and tribulations in the life of a lonely misfit girl from when she's a little girl to when she grows up. And this stop motion animated movie features, among other things, it's not a movie for kids.
Okay.
As it features male and female nudity.
Oh my God.
Frontal, and deals with topics like families being torn apart, parental neglect, the sudden tragic death of a loved one, child abuse, kleptomania, Alzheimer's, religious fanaticism, hypocrisy, bigotry, intolerance, hatred. It's very, very dark, possibly the darkest animated movie I've ever seen. Wow. But it's surrounded by this sense of whimsy and sweetness and play and deep affection that I found it kind of beautiful and kind of irresistibly endearing and very, very funny. It's a wonderfully triumphant story too of human resilience and the human spirit. It's a celebration of sibling love. It's also a stark look at death and how love sometimes can blind and how it can mask darkness and horror. A very good friend and colleague of mine described this film as Tim Burton meets Charles Dickens. and that's a really good description, though I might also add, it's like Franz Kafka meets Walt Disney. It is a really special, very different, weird, and wonderful movie. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it, but I just found it very, very affecting. But it's for adults only. Kids, no, you don't want your kids. You don't want
crazy about movies like this, Tim.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
They have a cute little character on the front, and they're animated, and parents don't look it up beforehand, or kids see animated and they click on the that's because it's a cartoon.
Yeah,
and it's not for them. And I'm not saying that animation can't be used, for other things besides kids programming, but sometimes it just drives me crazy because it's
you think the warning should be a little more upfront to parents. Yeah. Well, this one, I don't think I could have stood watching for it if it wasn't animated, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Because the animation is just charming. But the content is really, really dark. I also like movies that teach me things. I learned while I was watching this one what a person who studies snails and their behavior is called. A malacologist.
Oh, okay.
That's he or she who studies the behavior of snails. Yeah. So anyway, I learned something too. But yeah, I've never seen a movie like this. It's this weird combination of really heavy, dark themes. But there's this, like I said, it's kind of whimsical at the same time. It's very, very different. I've never seen an animated film quite like this before, but I really liked it.
John wants to know, is it a short film or full length?
It's a full-length feature film. Yeah, I think it's just around 90 minutes. So it's a nice runtime, Yeah. Yeah, okay. It's a feature, and I may push for this during my voting this year for best animated feature, but it's not Pixar, it's not Disney. Oh my God!
No. How about this one? Superman, the Christopher Reeve story.
Yeah, this is
Mhm.
one hell of a and highly emotional documentary about actor Christopher Reeve. That, it goes into his life in a general way, but mostly exists to emphasize and give weight to and to shine a light on his tragic horse riding accident that left him paralyzed from the neck down, and the aftermath of that accident, and how Reeve post cervical spinal injury became this towering icon for the disabled community, and in so doing how he brought disability to the forefront of not only politics and government but to Hollywood too. And oh my god, what this movie, what a story. Watching it's overwhelming, and I don't have words to describe how emotionally affecting watching this movie is, and how this horrible accident was so transformative. When by all rights it could have been just the opposite for not only Reeve but to millions of other people, disabled people. His wife Dana, my God, that woman. I mean, when you
Strong.
say that person is a saint, this woman, I don't know if she was a saint. She's probably human like all of us. But if there are saint-like qualities that we're all aspiring to, she had them. What a beautiful and loving soul she was, and how instrumental she was in all of this. The film richly details all of that. Reeve's friendship with Robin Williams. I didn't quite know that he was so close to Williams. Williams was the first person that made him laugh when he was dealing with this condition, and they were going to pull the plug on him too. But it was his wife who said, "Look, you're still you. I love you, and I'm going to see you through this, whatever you decide," which really pulled him out of the severe depression that he was in. I didn't know that when he was hospitalized, the surgery done on him had never been done before. They actually had to reattach his head to his body. Yeah.
Seriously?
Well, that's what they said in this movie, and they go into it. They even show some of it, but they don't go into the details. So I don't know, for pure emotional overload, I'm predicting that this movie is going to take the lion's share of awards in the documentary categories this year. It's emotionally overwhelming. It's emotionally overpowering. It's a tale of overcoming immense odds and of the impossible made possible. And it's just a very human, very, very human story. And while uplifting and kind of transcendent, it's still a bit sad too, because right when Reeve began regaining small movements in his body, after 10 plus years living this way, at that point, he had he had lost a lot of muscle strength. And he died very shortly thereafter. And then something like 11 months after he passed, his wife, Dana, got cancer and died shortly thereafter, too. So you'll need boxes of Kleenex. Let me just say that. But
Were
this
you
one's...
crying? Did you cry?
You know what? I'm so glad I watched this movie alone, on my Apple box, on my television with nobody around, because I was a wreck. No, it's really strong. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful movie.
Is this
Yeah.
streaming or is this in theater?
Yeah, it's in theaters, but it's also on Max. I discovered that it was on Max yesterday, and I thought, I wouldn't have even used my Apple box. I could have just gone on Max to see this. But yeah, it's streaming on Max, and I highly recommend it. I mean, you can criticize it for what it leaves out, but its focus is on this incredible... and his life before that was interesting as an actor, and how he was kind of typecast as Superman, and how none of the movies he made after the first Superman movie were really commercially successful. And then just the way his life on a dime takes a turn, and what he turns it into, what he and his wife do for other people. It's just... you watch these movies, Kim, you go, I don't have a problem in the world. And when I complain, somebody should slap me up the face sideways.
Yep.
Really. Yeah. I mean, amazing people. They were amazing people.
He was in that movie. Was it something about time? It was a time...
Somewhere in Time.
Somewhere in Time. Yes. I love that movie.
Yeah. And
and
that's a movie that got it was roasted critically when it came out, but it's the
Really?
one movie next to Superman that people remember him
Yep.
for. Yeah, he said it was the one review of that movie, and I can't remember what it was, but he remembered it. He quoted the critics' comment on his performance, saying he looked like a, I can't even remember what it was, but he said he never forgot that, and it devastated him. And he said it turns
Oh,
out it's the one movie that people come up to him all the time and say, "I love that movie. I loved you in it. I love that music." Yeah, and it's become a cult favorite,
yeah.
classic.
It was a
Yeah,
really good one. I
it
loved it.
is. Yeah.
This is a streaming show called Woman of the Hour.
Well, actually, it's a streaming movie.
Is it a movie? Okay, I'm sorry.
It's a movie. No, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been remiss in series. Although I
Mhm.
did watch another installment of The Penguin. That's getting really good. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
who knew this story, Kim? Right, Woman of the Hour. It stars
Mhm.
Anna Kendrick, and it's directed by Anna Kendrick. She's making her feature film directorial debut. It's a crime thriller. It's a serial killer drama, and it's based on the true story of this serial killer. His name was Rodney Alcala, and his 1978 appearance on the TV show The Dating Game in the midst of his murder spree. I think when he was booked on that show, he had already murdered 5 women. I mean, talk about a vetting failure, right? Have you ever seen The Dating Game?
Yeah, I mean, old episodes of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought it was a really lowbrow, cringy
Yeah.
show. But anyway, for people that have never seen it, the premise was that a young woman, presumably quote unquote looking for love, she would be selected to appear on the show, and then she'd ask questions of 3 eligible bachelors who she couldn't see. All 3 were behind this partition out of her view, and based on their answers, she would pick one of these guys, and the show would send both she and the person that she picked to go, pick to go out on a date, they would
Right.
send them somewhere on a date. And this story is about, well, it's not only the killer, but it's about the fact that this guy, I mean, yeah, again, talk about a major vetting failure, was the bachelor on this show who Cheryl Bradshaw, who was the woman who's played in the movie by Anna Kendrick, picked on The Dating Game. So she picked this serial killer to go out with. So good script. The movie's a good serial killer drama. It might be triggering for some. So warning on that. I mean, there's nothing pleasant about a serial killer drama.
Right.
And, his killings are depicted. They're tasteful, but they're still unpleasant. And
is it a horror movie?
no, it's a serial killer drama.
Okay.
It's a true story. It's a true
Okay.
story thing. But what I liked about the movie and what gave you time to breathe, the drama was offset by scenes of the girl being prepped for being on The Dating Game. Those scenes kind of played like a feminist satire. So it was a nice mixture of tones, which Kendrick as actress and director pulls off really impressively. So it's a good movie. It's streaming on Netflix. I didn't even know about this story. I thought, are they kidding me? They actually put a guy on there who was a real life serial killer to compete.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised.
And she picked him.
And she picked him. Well, because he was so seductive, and he knew what to say, and he knew how to lure women into his web.
Those serial killers, they have that charm, right?
They sure do. And none of these women were silly or stupid women. They were very, very smart. And yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Good movie.
Again,
you recommend?
I recommend it, but watch out for the triggers, folks. Yeah. Yikes. Yeah.
I'm intrigued by it, though, I have to say.
It's good. It is good. It's good.
Our new feature is the classic movie recommendation by
yeah.
And this week you have selected this one.
Yes, It Happened One Night. Now, Kim, this movie was actually released count them, it came out in 1934, 90 years ago. And it's still the template romantic comedy. And in my opinion, the best romantic comedy ever made. And is still 90 years after it was released, as fresh, funny, and romantically endearing as it ever was. This was the first film. There was only 3, but this was the first movie to win all 5 of the major Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Clark Gable; Best Actress, Claudette Colbert; and Best Screenplay. And it's the story of a spoiled heiress who runs away, and while on a bus, she escapes to a bus en route to marrying this guy her wealthy father dislikes. She accidentally bumps into a journalist who realizes that this is the heiress who's run away and is in all the newspapers. And he tells her, hey, I know who you are, but if you give me an exclusive to your story, I'll help you reach this guy you're running towards. But if you don't, I'm going to tell your father where you are. So she agrees. She agrees to this setup, and of course the inevitable occurs because it's a love story. Classic comedy with so many highlights and so many great scenes. And just with the exception of the opening of the Columbia Pictures logo, which when the movie starts, it looks like it's a silent movie. There's nothing, absolutely nothing dated about It Happened One Night. I've seen it at least 25 times, and it never, ever gets old. And Kim, I don't know if this is still true. I suspect it is, but I haven't taught in a while or talked to other film teachers about this. But one of the obstacles faced by high school teachers, especially those who are teaching film, is that young students, and I mean young as in high school, they won't, or at best they resist watching black and white films. They don't want to watch them. They don't think they're real movies. They can't get past the black and white, and movies to them mean color, right? Mm-hmm. But for some reason, It Happened One Night, based on my own experience, which I'm not going to go into because it's take forever, and my own research, appears to be the one exception to these young kids. The kids, they moan and groan when it begins, but by the end, it becomes one of their favorite films, which attests to the timelessness of this great movie. Great movie. Funny, witty, touching. Clark Gable is at his star power best, and Claudette Colbert makes beautiful chemistry with him. So, I just wish I had time again today to watch it when I get off with you, but I got to run to the next thing. So I'll have to wait.
Is there any relation between Claudette and Stephen?
None that I know of. Okay. There may be, but that's not the most. Well, they pronounce it the same, Colbert.
That's why I wonder.
The Colbert Report. I don't know. That's a good question. I'll look it up. I'll have an answer for you next week. But it's really interesting the way they both interplay, because she's very elegant, very high society, and Gable's kind of this rugged action guy, and they just make beautiful cinematic music together. This movie, oh my God, I don't know anybody that I have ever talked to that has seen this movie that did not wind up loving it. Wow. Nobody. Really, it's just anyway. So that's my classic movie recommendation for the week.
This is going really well. This Tim Sika special classic recommendation.
Well, I get all excited, so it's real easy for me to yammer on.
All right, let's do the wrap up. We have Conclave. You said this is an excellent film.
Yes,
good twist, perfect ending, great cast. You highly recommend Conclave.
Yeah, indeed.
Venom, The Last Dance. You said it's not a great script. The cartoony elements were good. You said there's some funny dialogue and some spectacular action sequences, and you called it recommendable.
Yeah.
Magpie. You like this one. You said there's some missing pieces with the characters here, and it kept a good movie from being excellent, but still you called it entertaining, satisfying, and you recommend it.
Yes.
The Memoir of a Snail. You said this is unusual, weird, and wonderful. You said not for kids, might be the darkest animated movie that you've ever seen, but you found it beautiful and funny, and you're going to recommend this one.
Yeah.
Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. You said it's an emotional movie. You think this is going to be an award winner. You called it a very human story, uplifting but still sad. You said you're going to need the Kleenex. It is on Max, and you said you recommend this one. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Woman of the Hour. You called this one a good script, a good movie. You recommend it. You say a thumbs up.
God, I'm wondering what's happening to my critical sensibilities, because I loved all these movies. I liked everything this week. Yeah.
And it happened one night. You say 90 years old, but still as fresh and as funny as ever. It was the first Academy movie to win all 5 of the major Academy Award categories, and still the best romantic comedy ever made. Your classic movie recommendation, It Happened One Night.
Yes, and
Yeah,
that I mean that poster may be a turnoff for a lot of people because doesn't that look like an old silent movie? But I think that might
kind
be
of,
the
yeah.
original art. I think that might be the original artwork. And Gable looks too, I don't know, he looks too sophisticated in that
He does.
drawing. Yeah, there he is. That's that
There
epitome.
you go.
Yeah, there's a scene where he's in that scene. He's bragging to her how he can always stop a car by using his thumb when they hitchhike because they have to hitchhike, and he's just and the cars are just blowing him off. And she says to him, she says, "Hey, I have a system all my own. I'll stop a car and I won't use my thumb." So she basically goes out into the street, lifts her skirt up, shows her leg, and the first car that comes by
Of
screeches to a
course.
halt. So yeah, I mean, it's just I love that movie. I love the movie. I love It
Ricky
Happened One Night.
says, looking forward to seeing your next classic choice. Lori says, one of the good things my mom passed to me is a love of old movies that we used to watch together. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Oh, Liz says Claudette was French.
Yes, that's right. French. Claudette Colbert. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Ricky says, I've seen this one about a dozen times.
See, hey, Ricky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rhonda
good
says, when I
taste.
was a child on Saturdays, my dad would tease me, why are you watching all these old movies, and laugh.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, they have that kind of they get that kind of reaction from
Mhm.
people, but they and again, I think every generation like complains like, why aren't the movies they're making today as good as the
Yeah.
ones that they have, whatever. I mean, it's all relative, but we do have our personal likes and taste and dislikes and
Mhm.
and that's as it should be.
Eileen says Gable takes off his shirt, and because he isn't wearing an
Yeah.
undershirt, the sales plummeted.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, that's another thing
Oh,
about underwear sales like plummeted because
wow.
there's a scene where they're in a hotel together and they're staying overnight. They're not married, of course, and they're together in the same room. So
Mhm,
Gable puts up this like clothesline, and then he puts a blanket over it so that they can't see each other.
mhm.
And but she won't go to her side. And he says, "Well, I'm going to undress." And he says, he takes off his shirt and doesn't have an undershirt on. And then he makes a joke about it. He goes, and then according to the way I usually do things, the pants come next. And that's when she runs behind the curtain. And yeah, and yeah. So anyway, it's just it's such a good movie. Oh,
Nice. Be aware with a compliment. Good job, Tim. Thank you for your honest movie reviews. Nice.
oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
That's so nice. That's so nice.
very good. Tim Sika at the movies with you every week is so much fun, and it's such a good little time away from all the yucky stuff happening in the world. So thank you for bringing it.
Thanks, Kim. You have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.
You too. Bye, Tim Sika.
Okay, bye bye.